Okay, what if I told you that for centuries, we've been trying to fix our bodies with the wrong instruction manual? Today, we're going to explore a concept that doesn't just aim to improve medicine, but to completely rewrite the operating system of human life itself. Welcome to the absolutely fascinating world of biofield dynamics. For as long as we've had modern science, this has really been the main metaphor. We've seen the body through this mechanical, Newtonian lens. If a part breaks, you replace it. If you have a symptom, you find a chemical to shut it down. It's a very simple, very direct, cause and effect kind of model.
And look, don't get me wrong, this mechanical approach was a game changer. It gave us things like antibiotics and modern surgery, saving countless lives from infections and injuries. But when you start talking about the complex, chronic diseases we face today, things like cancer, Alzheimer's, or even just aging itself, this model is hitting a wall, and it's hitting it hard.
So, what comes next? We're not just talking about a better pill or a fancier machine, we're talking about a fundamental paradigm shift. It's about moving away from that whole body as a machine idea and starting to see it for what it might actually be, a complex, and more importantly, a programmable information system.
Now this slide, this right here, is where it all clicks into place. In the old way of thinking, our genes were the software, right? The program that ran everything. But in this new model, the genes are just the hardware, the physical chips and wires. The real control layer, the actual software running the show, is an invisible bioelectric field that tells all that hardware what to do. And this brings us to this incredible idea called Einsteinian medicine. It's about moving beyond just chemistry and molecules. It's a new way of looking at things that treats the body as this dynamic, programmable system, where information, communicated through energy fields, is just as critical, maybe even more so, than the physical matter itself.
All right, so if we're going to start treating the body like a new kind of operating system, we need to understand its rules, right? The source material for this explainer breaks it all down into three foundational pillars. Think of it as the complete tech stack for this new paradigm.
So these three pillars are bioelectric informatics, which you can think of as the software layer. Then there's quantum consciousness, which is kind of like the user interface. And finally, dissipative adaptation, which is the thermodynamic engine that's powering the whole system. Let's break them down one by one.
First up, bioelectric informatics. Now, this is not about the fast zapping signals in our nerves. This is a much older, much more fundamental language. Every single cell in your body has a subtle voltage charge, and by communicating through these tiny voltage differences, groups of cells know exactly what to do, whether to form an eye, or a finger, or a liver. It is literally the body's architectural blueprint, and it's written in electricity.
And if you think this sounds like science fiction, well, it's not. This is happening in labs today. Scientists have already used these bioelectric signals to make an eye grow on a tadpole's gut. They've used wearable bioreactors to convince frogs to regenerate amputated limbs. They are literally changing the body's instructions without ever touching the DNA itself.
Let that sink in for a moment. This is the crucial point. The genetic hardware was identical. All that changed were the electrical instructions being sent to the cells. It proves there's a difference between the blueprint and the building materials, and that changes everything.
This shift just completely reframes how we approach disease. The question stops being, how do we poison this cancer cell, and it becomes, how do we just remind the cancerous cells of the correct pattern that they've forgotten? Suddenly, disease isn't an enemy to be killed, it's a bug in the code. It's an error in the information field that we can actually correct.
Okay, let's move to the second pillar, and this is where things get even more profound, maybe a little mind-bending. Quantum consciousness. This theory suggests that our brain isn't just some biological computer that creates consciousness. What if, instead, it's more like a really complex antenna or a receiver that's tuning into a consciousness that operates at a more fundamental quantum level of reality?
So why would anyone even consider this? Well, because classical neuroscience is kind of hitting its own wall. For one, the very nature of human insight, that aha moment, seems to break the rules of normal computation. And get this, recent evidence suggests that general anesthesia doesn't just work with chemicals, it works by dampening quantum-level vibrations inside our neurons.
The potential for medicine here is just staggering. If consciousness is really based on resonance and frequency, then treating mental and neurological conditions is no longer about flooding the brain with these blunt force chemicals. It's about tuning the brain with incredible precision, using specific frequencies to restore cognitive function or correct psychiatric disorders. And finally, we get to the engine that powers this whole system, dissipative adaptation. You know, we used to think that life was in this constant, epic battle against chaos, against entropy. But this new idea completely turns that on its head. It suggests that life doesn't fight chaos, it uses it. Complex things, like you and me, might exist for the simple reason that we're the best way for the universe to dissipate energy. From this point of view, healing isn't fighting decay, it's the ultimate energy management strategy.
And this gives us a brilliant new way to think about something like aging. We've always seen it as inevitable damage, the hardware just wearing out over time. But what if it's not a hardware problem at all? What if it's a software problem? A gradual loss of the correct information, a degradation of that bioelectric blueprint. Because, as we all know, a software problem can be fixed.
And here is the proof. It's incredible. When scientists take the nucleus from an old cell, that's the old hardware, and they put it inside a young egg cell that has a young information field, that old nucleus completely resets. It starts acting like it's young again. The hardware was old, the field was young, and the field won. This suggests aging might just be a set point problem.
So, let's put these three pillars together and see what the future of medicine could really look like. We're moving from pure theory to actual practical application. What does a world running on this brand new operating system actually look like?
The source material even lays out a potential 10-year roadmap. It would start with diagnostics, basically learning to read the body's bioelectric field to catch those patterning errors super early. Then we'd move on to developing regenerative subroutines to fix specific problems, like organ failure. And the final phase? A full, system-wide entropic reset.
Just take a look at the scale of this disruption. This isn't about creating a slightly better chemotherapy drug. It's about making chemotherapy totally obsolete by simply correcting the pattern that causes cancer in the first place. It's not about finding more organ donors, it's about telling the body to just regrow its own. It's not about managing aging, it's about resetting it.
The end game here is just breathtakingly ambitious. It's nothing less than achieving full read and write access to the fundamental informational code that governs our biology, true ownership of the human operating system.
When you really consider all the evidence from these three pillars, from regenerating limbs to quantum effects in our brains, it really seems like we're leaving the realm of if this is possible and entering the realm of when. The ability to rewrite life is clearly on the horizon.
And that leaves us with what is probably the most important question of all. With technology this powerful, something that touches the very definition of life and health, who gets to control the code? That is the question we are all going to have to answer.
Today's explainer on Biofield Dynamics was based on the groundbreaking concepts presented by Noren's studio. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into what could be the future of medicine.